Hello and welcome to Wolves on the Westwind. This is based on the award-winning World of the Dark Eye tabletop RPG, and it is a narrative adventure with some RPG elements as well as choose your own adventure. Oh yes, very much at the core of this experience. If you'd like to check out the game, there is a link in the description. This video is kindly sponsored, and I've been having a whale of a time with this. I've only played it for a very small amount of time so far, but every single choice feels impactful, and choices, as I say, are at the heart of this story. There's over 15 hours of content and 2 different characters you can play as. They have different abilities as well. Let's start a new game so you can actually get a look at these characters. You can see here we have Ulrich and we have Nedime, and they have different skills as well. You can see here, she has astral points as her main resource, and you also have a bunch of abilities as well with each one. So, for example, Ulrich, I've been playing as him mostly. We are a weathered mercenary from Andergast who has wasted his life away fighting other people's battles. You came north to Thorwal, protecting a Nostrian trader who was on his way to important talks with the Hetman of Isleifsfell, Ulfgar Forunsiansson. Yes, I am very bad at pronunciation, just so you know. Anyway, the game comes out on May 25th, and it is being released to Steam and iOS. But for this particular video, we're going to play as Ulrich. Get down. You hear the twang of a bowstring in enough time to throw the trader you're escorting into cover. He leaps behind a bush in a blind panic as you skitter around a nearby tree to keep watch. This road was supposed to be safe. I had it guaranteed. Quiet. Be quiet. He swallows down a bundle of nerves as he looks at you, and then peeks over the bush to find your pursuers. You contort yourself around to look behind the tree without giving the archers a target to hit. It's too dark to see them or their number clearly. You can hear them though, getting closer quickly. Isleifsfell is close. We should make a run for it. You know he's not wrong, but you also know that unless you do something now, that alone will not be enough. Let us attempt to fend the bandits off. As another arrow sails past, you growl and shake your head as you tighten your grip on your sword. You need to go, as quickly as you can. I'll fend them off. But go, now. You pick him up by his collar and throw him back towards the road, where he scrambles to stay upright. He casts one last desperate look towards you and the cart you now protect before he bolts away awkwardly. Another arrow flies past your face to pierce the cart's woodwork as you stand ready to protect it. Out of the shadows, you start to see the nearest of the bandits race towards you. One has followed you directly and relentlessly down the path. The next appears from the verge, whirling an axe around as she goes. One after another, they appear out of the darkness, and you know you'll be overrun in moments. Alright, so this is a pretty important choice. I mean, you wouldn't think... I mean, I obviously don't know what other options there are, because I only chose one so far. I mean, we could try something different and see what happens, but I'm a bit... I'm not sure. I'm a bit afraid of actually doing that, because I'm not sure if I'm going to die or something. There are many different endings that you might get as well, so that kind of indicates to me that there is a possibility of my death. I mean, I have HP for a reason after all. I'm gonna, instead of using Forceful Blow, I have used Forceful Blow in the past, and it seemed to work quite well, but I'm actually gonna get the cart moving this time and see how it goes. So, let's try it. You jostle the horse into pulling the cart away, following after it backwards as the bandits finally reach you. You parry the strike of the first, at the same time as you kick away the second. Another arrow whistles past, as you counter where you can and block where you can't. But you know you can't possibly keep up the fight, as more and more of the bandits swarm in. You have to run. And so, you run. You can already see Joshold ahead, flailing about as he struggles to keep up any kind of pace. So focused are you on your escape that you don't even notice the town now clearly visible ahead. It's only when the first arrow sails past you in the other direction that you really focus on the palisade. People are now racing out of the town towards you, all well armed and well armored. Alright, well, we have been hired as a mercenary to get the trader to safety, so in my opinion, it's probably a good idea to select that instead of joining the fight. As the road between the palisade and the bandits becomes a hail of arrows, you see Josald stumble and fall up ahead. He cowers there until you reach him, grab him in both hands, and pull him to his feet to drag him to safety. He splutters as you pull him through the throng of Thorwalian warriors that now stand ready for the fight to begin. You feel a great swell of relief as the cries start to ring out behind you, and you can finally stop to breathe. The danger has passed. Against all the odds, you've actually made it to safety. It is not a long fight, and those who are chasing you are quickly routed by the town's defenders. They ask you many questions about the chase as they invite you into the town proper. And then you can finally rest a while, laying down your burdens until morning comes. It's a cold but bright sun that rises over the thatched roofs of Isleifsfell to greet you the next day. Even after years of training and experience, you still feel the aches and pains of your trials and tribulations. A gentle breeze tugs at your clothes, and the smell of salt on the air helps to keep you sharp. And the town wakes up around you as though nothing had ever happened. People open up their shops and services for the day. Seagulls caw overhead. Over the din, you hear the blowing of bellows and the pounding of a hammer against steel as a blacksmith gets to work. Outlander! No sooner have you stopped at a market stand of freshly baked loaves and buns do you hear her call. You immediately recognize her as one of the warriors who came to your rescue at the palisade. Amongst the rest of the townsfolk, she stands out in a dress much richer and brighter in color. Estrid Ulfgar's daughter, yes. I did say, I warned you, my pronunciation is wonderfully bad. Oh yes. We met briefly last night. I will say good morning. I'm glad to meet you properly this time. Indeed, let me be the first to give you a proper welcome to Isleifsfell. I can only apologize for the chaos of your arrival. It was hardly your fault. What can I do for you? Her brow furrows as she grimaces at you and becomes more serious. I'm afraid it's about the attack. My father wishes to speak to you about it. Come, you'll eat with us this morning. It's the least we can do. Much to the complaining of your empty stomach, you're torn away from breakfast to follow Istrid. She leads you further inland, jostling through the crowds as the town wakes up around you. I'll be honest with you, Outlander. This attack was quite troubling. We need to make sure nothing like that ever happens again, if we can. We have a reputation to uphold. Well, what about patrols? I noticed there weren't any patrols on the roads. She chuckles and gives you a wry smile as she massages the muscles in her hands. It's been a long time since any thought it necessary to protect our lands with patrols. My father has worked hard to make Isleifsfell safe. Those who break our laws are met either with justice or retribution. One way or the other, it is quick, so most should know better than to ambush travelers here. That's what makes this attack so troubling. We must act quickly to find those responsible. Istrid falls darkly quiet after that. It makes you slightly more uneasy as you continue up the gentle slope towards the Hetman's hall. The fight had been over almost as soon as it had started. Many of your attackers had fled at the first sight of defending warriors. But those who had helped you had been quick to usher you away to a longhouse to rest and recover. They had seemed a little on edge, but you'd thought that was simply down to the surprise of the attack. Now it seems that something larger was at work, and that the Hetman wants to speak to you about it is concerning. The noise of the town only swells as its bustling streets awaken. But as you climb upwards, everything starts to feel just a little less cramped as the space between buildings grows. Soon you are in a wide open square, and Eastrid is beckoning you towards a great hall that stands ancient and resolute before you. She pushes the huge double door to the hall open without knocking or waiting. You're slightly taken aback by the sheer scale of the room you step into. Long benches flank the path to the Hetman's table, and huge chandeliers hang from the rafters. A handful of trophies are placed on the walls, a reminder of the triumph of those who have ruled in Isleifsfell. The air is stale and reeks of food, fire, and sweat. "Father, I've found our guest." Eastrid leads you to the table that sits at the back of the hall, positioned so that those sat there can watch over everyone. The Hetman looks up from his conversation at his daughter's call and quickly stands up as you approach. He greets you warmly and heartily, with arms wide and a smile to match, bowing his head in your direction. "Well met, Outlander. In Swafnir and Travier's names, you are most welcome here. Thank you for joining us this morning. Please sit. Take your fill of food and drink." A wide spread of meats, fish, and breads covers the central square of the table, in easy reach of the Hetman and his family. I will say thank you. "It's a pleasure to be seated with you." Ulfgar waves a dismissive hand at your comment as you walk up the small set of stairs towards his table. "It is only what's due, Outlander. Please sit. Come, we must get to business. This is Brand. He's the town's Godai, and he's been an advisor to the head person for many decades now." He indicates an older, near-decrepit man in a heavy bundle of robes who sits and eats at the end of the table. Brand gives you a long side glance that immediately unnerves you, but he says nothing and continues chewing. Without wasting another breath, the Hetman moves on to introduce the other, younger man at the table. "I believe you met my youngest, Raskir." Raskir nods at you curtly as he throws a bite of bread into his mouth, then picks up a tankard to drink from. Once again, he seems to look you up and down before he leans across the table to give you a strong handshake. "Thank you again for escorting the Nostrian trader to our town. I'm sorry it wasn't as simple as suggested. The whole thing is rather troubling." "Well, I will say all's well that ends well." I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say, you seem upset by this. "Forgive my saying so, but you seem more upset by this than I'd expect." Raskir chuckles before taking a sip from his tankard and reaching forward to rip a handful of bread from the loaf. "Do you know what it means to be peaceless, Outlander?" "I don't. No." "To be peaceless is the worst punishment a Thorwal could face. It is the punishment we give to those who have committed terrible, terrible crimes. They are a shame to their ancestors, and they have been stripped of all honor they had and can ever have. They will never find peace with the gods. They will never fight at Swafnir's side or drink at Travier's table. That is why the peaceless are scorned and hide amongst themselves on the old port stones. For them to return in force to the mainland makes no sense. But if a group of them have, then they are a grave danger, and we must deal with them." An uncomfortable silence falls on the hall while you process what Raskir has said. Out of it, it is the Hetman that clears his throat to speak up, talking to you over his drink. "I've called you here for your help, Outlander. You have already proven that you're a capable fighter. You could be of great help to us once again, and my son is right. We must deal with the peaceless. Today he and Eastrid will head out to find those that remain and end the threat before they can strike again. I'd like you to join them." "Well, just the three of us?" It was quite a number that attacked us, and still a fair few that fled when it was over. Wouldn't it be better to send a larger group of warriors if you hope to defeat them? A band like this would simply turn and run at the sight of an army of Thorwalian warriors coming to meet them. If everything goes according to plan, a smaller group can catch them off guard.
And besides, look at you. We're more than good enough to defeat these wretches.
With the room falling quiet again, you can't help but notice the small niggling feeling in the back of your mind. You can't place it, but it only adds to the uneasiness that's been building in your chest all throughout the morning.
I am happy to pay you, Outlander, if that's what it takes. And you're welcome to stay here as a guest, for a while at least, if that suits you.
Of the three of them, Ulfgar is the only one who seems patient to await your answer. Eastrid is at least trying to mask her own uneasiness, glancing up at you between small pickings of her food. Raskia, though, makes no effort to hide the fact that he's on edge, staring at you over his meal. Okay, I don't really, here's the thing, okay? I don't really mind too much about how much they're going to pay me, because I think this is a pretty significant, dangerous mission, so I'm pretty sure we'll have whatever we want from them at this point. I think generally they're just going to have so much gratitude that they'll probably owe us a pretty big favor, even if they don't give us a lot of money or anything like that. So I'm pretty happy, so I'm just going to say something's wrong. Something's wrong here. What aren't you telling me? In the same moment, Raskia rolls his eyes in frustration. Eastrid sighs and rubs hers. The Hetman quickly signals for them both to settle down, shifting in his seat and putting a careful hand on the table.
We aren't trying to deceive you, Outlander. There are things in motion that are beyond your control, Outlander.
The stranger at the end of the table has been so quiet throughout the meal that you had forgotten he was there. Now, though, you look at him as he spits out a fishbone and glances across to you. And under his gaze, you feel the hair on the back of your neck stand on end.
It is the will of the Runyas that you arrived here. If they had wished to keep you in Nostria or anywhere in the south, they would not have brought you here. But here you are, so that you may aid us in this. The Hetman did not wish for me to tell you. He thought you may doubt what the Runyas have revealed to us.
One look back at the Hetman tells you that he is feeling a measure of regret at the Godai's outburst. But then again, he awaits your response. Well, I'm going to say, what did they say, I guess? What did the Runyas tell you exactly?
That an unknown warrior would aid us in what is to come. Before you arrived, we did not understand what that meant. But then the peaceless chased you to our doorstep. The Runyas have revealed their will to us. I'm sorry that I wasn't more open with you until now.
There's little more we can say now, Father. Either the Outlander will help us, or he won't. You're very conscious that all three of them now await your final answer. But as you sit in quiet contemplation of his words, your eyes are drawn back across the room to the Godai. He has gone back to his own little world, chewing on some dried fish and staring off into some part of space. But you feel pressure building, left with very little time to think about your decision. Especially as the Hetman and his family have all now left their meals alone and are fully focused on you. Your mind teeters a little at the idea that your arrival in Islifsfell was preordained. The gods have never struck you as particularly forthcoming with their plans, if they ever had any. But there's that niggling sensation again, chewing at the back of your mind.
Are we agreed, Outlander?
You sit stunned for one more moment, then you are overwhelmed, and without realizing it, you nod. Just once. I would say agreed. Agreed, Hetman. I'll help where I can. Then your word is a pledge to me. There is no hint of his jovial nature now. He is grim and reserved as he nods. Oh dear. You should all prepare to leave as soon as possible. Good hunting. Alright. We can now... okay, yeah, we can now do this quest, I suppose. I mean, there's nothing else for me to do here, I guess, right? Okay, you meet with the Hetman's children, Istrid and Raskir, in order to prepare for the task ahead. Let's do it. Preparations do not take long. You're told to bring as little as you can, for you'll move swiftly and sleep roughly should the need arise. You're well practiced for such exercises, and soon you are armored, and once again underway. You shouldn't be nervous as you walk back out of the longhouse and through the town of Isleifsfell. Nerves before this kind of skirmish were honed out of you years ago. But something about the words of the old man, the Godai, are toying with your mind. Thorwalers lean heavily on the will of their Runyas. Over the years, you've heard many Thorwalers traveling further south talk about them very openly. Never has it affected you so personally. Is it really their will that you be here now? If so, why? Why not someone else? These questions grate on you, no matter how hard you fight to shake them off before you reach the palisade. Istrid and Raskir are waiting for you there. They both cut far more imposing figures, dressed and ready for a fight. They both acknowledge your arrival with a quiet nod as they glance over your equipment to gauge your readiness. Alright, let's hunt some outlaws. Raskir quickly lets out a hearty laugh and points at you as he looks at his sister. I like this one. She gives you each a wry smile, but quickly motions for you both to calm down. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Overconfidence will kill us faster than any peaceless can. Before we begin, we will ask Swafnir for a blessing. Will you join us? Well, I don't know your prayers, I guess, because I guess we don't, right? I don't know your prayers well enough to take part in something like this seriously. No matter, it is simple. You can listen to me and Istrid first, and that will be enough. Feel no pressure, Outlander. For us, this is tradition. It goes unnoticed by her brother, but you hear the very slight pause in her explanation. It is our duty to fulfill. For you, the offer is extended only if you wish for it. Though I'm sure the gods would welcome it. Well, then I'll join you. Why not? Istrid bows her head to respect your decision before moving to break the circle you have all formed in the street. As she walks away from you, you catch the subtle but strange look on her face, somewhere between disappointment and concern. Raskir, meanwhile, doesn't hide his joy at your decision. Oh, it seems like we may have disappointed her, but he's I don't know, he's very headstrong, as we can quite clearly tell. He's very headstrong. He's wielding a two-handed battle axe. We know he's very much ready for a fight. While, on the other hand, she's more reserved, more cautious, but, well, that's probably hiding that intelligence, the strategic mind that is very careful and calculating with their decisions. And I think that's maybe a bad thing that I've just done right now, but we'll see. They line up next to each other a few steps out of the way of the path out of town. You stand next to Istrid, following their lead as they lie their weapons down at their feet. Raskir first bows his head and raises his hands over his axe, with his palms facing towards the heavens. O Swafnir, brave conqueror, tireless hunter, watch over this axe and its bearer. He speaks with a ferocity you were not quite expecting, letting his voice carry far with no hint of shame. In your name, and by your will, I go forth to fight. To build upon the honor of my forebears, to prepare for the final fight, to fulfill my destiny. That is my goal.
Grant me but a piece of your godly power, and let me prevail.
With that, he snatches his axe back up, though he waits where he stands for Istrid to say her prayer too. She repeats the prayer almost word for word, changing only axe for sword and shield. Then it is your turn. You take it slowly to make sure you do not get the words wrong. Your prayer is not as strong or confident as Istrid's, and certainly not as much as Raskir's. But he is nodding at you when you pick your sword back up, to affirm you have done everything correctly. Istrid's expression is much harder to read, but she holds herself confidently as she double-checks the straps of her vambraces. You take the lead, Outlander. Take us to where you were first attacked. We will pick up the trail from there. It doesn't take long for you to reach the point where you remember ducking for cover. You see the tracks of a cart, set deep in the earth from the weight of all the wares that Josel had been carrying. With an untrained eye, it would be easy to think that nothing had happened, but you find the telltale signs. Arrows strewn about, disturbances in the underbrush, very light footprints, all roughly pointing in the same direction. The weather last night was fair, so at least the tracks will be easier to follow when they head off-road. Soon, you have tracked back to where the ambush was sprung, and are looking for clues as to your attacker's origin. All of you are quiet as you work, focused, or perhaps conscious of falling into the same trap again. But then, you find them. Heavy imprints of boots in the verge of the road, coming from the north. As you had come from the southeast, you know they aren't yours, but they are fresh. Definitely less than a day old. Okay, we're going to inform them. They went this way. On the off chance that you are not alone, you make sure to keep your voice quiet. Their faces fall when they see you pointing north, and they look around carefully as they close toward you. That's very strange. They passed around Isleifsfell to get here. They must have given it a wide berth.
But there's nothing out there. A good day's march will already bring you to the foot of the Aldir Mountains.
The perfect place to hide an encampment, away from any towns and any prying eyes. Well, and they weren't seen? If they travel so far out in open plains, how were they not seen?
No doubt they travelled by night, though that is a long way to come for such a small reward. But then, these people are merciless, or actually peaceless in actual fact, there we go. Maybe they are driven to desperation.
Come, we should get going. We are already hours behind. Istrid quickens the pace as you leave the road behind and start your way across the country. The way is easy at least. They are not flat plains you cross at a light jog, but only gently sloping hills. However, you see the mountains creeping towards you from the north, and you know the way will get harder. You run at a steady pace, keeping your breathing controlled using years of training and experience. You run beside Raskir, who is heavier of foot and breath, even though he doesn't seem to struggle at all. In fact, with his great axe held tightly in one hand as he runs along, he seems very much at ease. As you run, he looks across at you and speaks with big gaps in which to breathe.
You look as though you've done this before, Outlander. Are you an experienced tracker?
Well, you could say that. When it becomes clear you'll say nothing more about it, he laughs and nods.
Well, that's good for us, a tracker and a fighter. This will be easy.
I hope so. You continue on at that pace for a good few hours without event. Further and further north you go, ever closer to those snow-capped mountains. Istrid makes it her job to keep an eye on the tracks, which don't relent. The outlaws, the peaceless, you follow, were not worried about being seen or covering their tracks, it seems. They were completely focused on their own goal, whatever that was, though Istrid says they were moving slower. The sun is at its peak when she stops your march at the top of a hill. Each climb is getting steadily harder, and all three of you are breathing deeply to recover while you can. Eastward, though, brings your attention to a forest at the foot of the mountains that you can now see quite clearly before you. It is still quite some distance away, but there is a settlement at the forest's edge. Even so far away, you can see smoke rising from it, like a campfire to see for miles around. What is that? It's called Hjallvik. No one has lived there for decades.
It was abandoned, too far from the sea and too close to the mountains, too difficult to sustain. They must have run through the whole night to get there already.
I think we should be careful. We should approach carefully. If they are keeping watch, they might spot us on the hillsides. We've made good time, though it's already midday. I think we can slow down.
Not too much, though. Something's going on here, and I don't like it.
Come on, and conserve your energy while you can. It's a grave silence that falls on you as you start forward again. It's different from before. You feel a tension again, and not just your own, but theirs as well. Time seems to slow down as you prepare yourself for whatever encounter is to come. Already, you feel all your muscles tense and tighten, and you feel your senses just that little bit more on edge. It's as if your body knows more than you do that a difficult fight lies ahead of you. It must be mid-afternoon by the time you eventually arrive. As the earth starts to slope more steadily upwards underneath you, Eastrid orders you to slow down again. Soon you are crawling through long grass, slowly and on your bellies, as to not draw any unwanted attention. After what seems like an eternity like this, through the blades and reeds around you, you see Hjallvik. At least, you see parts of it. Where the long grass stops, a small dirt road cuts across you from west to east, leading you off towards the mountains. Beyond that, you see the remains of a very small village, built across the uneven land of the mountain's roots. A palisade blocks your view of most of the village, but you see some of the ruined rooftops. If it weren't for the two guards standing at the gateway, you'd say no one had lived here for a very long time. They're expecting trouble. Why else would they keep watch?
It's 2 guards. We can take them.
Well, it's not just 2. We could surprise them. Oh no. Yes. Oh, the knowledge that there are so many different endings, it kind of makes me second guess myself all the time. Oh no. Okay. Well, it is replayable. It has a lot of replayability, this game, so I'm kind of wanting to I'm kind of wanting to surprise them, and I might play through again at a later point because I want to try the different option, but we'll see. Okay, I'm going to say we could surprise them. We might be able to surprise them if we move quickly enough. And what if it goes wrong, Outlander? If they are alerted inside the village, all of this could be over very quickly.
He's right, Istrid. The element of surprise is with us.
Well, we need to think quickly. We can come back? We can come back, I guess. We know where they are now. We can come back at a later time with more of a plan, or more soldiers. Trying not to move the brush around you too much, you look across to Istrid, who is biting her lip in thought.
Hold on, look! Coming down the road!
You crane your neck so that you can see whatever it is that Raskir has seen. From the west, another outlaw shoves a man down the path towards the abandoned village. The man is desperately trying to wrestle out of thick and tight rope bonds around his hands. Immediately after them, another pair follows, another outlaw and another prisoner. This one is more subdued. Ooh, they have prisoners.
That settles it. I'm going. Follow me, or don't.
Before he moves so much as an inch, Istrid lunges through the grass and snatches his arm tightly. Don't move.
We can't let those people suffer, Istrid. There's no decision to be.
They have 2 prisoners, which means they can kill one of them just to make a point. We have to be careful. Any ideas, Eastrid? What do you think we should do, Eastrid? She takes another brief moment to collect her thoughts before she nods. We should double back and approach from the forest and try to sneak through the palisade from there. If we can do that, we can deal with any peaceless we come across quickly and quietly without raising an alarm. Then we can rescue the prisoners. We might even find a way to get them to safety before the fighting begins in earnest. You hear Raskir let out a disgusted snort. And what if they kill the prisoners before we make it all the way around to the forest? What if we're delayed or caught? Those people cannot be allowed to die. What would you do then? There's only silence for a moment while the young Thorwalian warrior actually thinks. But then you hear a growling sigh. If we cannot storm the gates, then we shall ask for an invitation into the village. What? They won't attack us on sight. If we approach from the road, they won't attack us on sight. We can use that to get close, attack the guards before they can call for help, and storm the village without losing time. Beside you, Eastrid shakes her head and then taps it gently against the floor in frustration. You cannot be that much of a fool, brother. We are outnumbered. That kind of attack will get us all killed. The prisoners have already long been dragged out of view, and there are no more hints as to the peaceless' true number. You simply do not have enough time to give either plan proper thought. Whichever plan you choose, there'll be limited time to execute it. Right, okay, so personally, for me, I think that Eastrid's plan is smarter. However, I think Raskir's plan, if time is of the essence, which indeed it probably is, then I think Raskir's plan is probably the way to go. But again, this is another one of those opportunities to choose and make a decision that could potentially get you killed or, well, otherwise, you know, other things, get other people killed, maybe not just your character. Okay, so I'm going to go with Eastrid's plan. A direct attack is too risky. We should go with Eastrid's plan. Thank you, Outlander. You see her glance across to her brother with a tilt of her head that you recognize as a, so there. Fine. Let us hope that the gods understand your reasoning if this goes wrong, Eastrid. More than anything else, Raskir sounds disappointed, but Eastrid has already moved on, snaking slowly backwards. Come on, both of you. There's no time to lose. It takes some time to back out of view of the guards and then double around into the forest west of Hjallvik. The telltale signs of autumn turning to winter are far clearer under the thick cover of the trees. A little snow has already come down from the mountains, and the air is cool and crisp. Your breath billows out in front of you as you run down the long, unused paths to make up for lost time. Eastrid is focused on the task at hand, and Raskir seems more and more agitated the longer the journey takes. Eventually, though, you come to the palisade again, this time on the northwestern side of the village. Eastrid orders you to stop in the shadows of the stronger, taller trees, those that weren't cut away to make way for the palisade. You can see a gap in the tall fencing that the three of you could easily fit through. You just need to make sure it's safe. Eastrid sneaks forward alone first, creeping over to peer through the gap in the palisade. After a few moments, she signals for you and Raskir to approach. You do your best not to disturb the stillness as you make your way through the brush. At the palisade, you try to gauge what might be on the other side, but the angle is too oblique. You hear some voices, though, and Eastrid raises a finger to her lips as she watches something you cannot see. When the voices die down, she nods and speaks in a breathless whisper. It doesn't look like they're on guard or patrol, at least not here. I can't see the prisoners, though. We will sneak through and then split up and make our own ways through the village. If we don't find them before we get to the square, that's where we'll surprise the peaceless. Understood. You nod to show you understand, and immediately turn your attention to the task at hand. You take another careful look and listen to make sure you don't run straight into the path of any perilous. And then you push through the gap, shoulder first, noiselessly squeezing between the wooden uprights. Even before you are through, you start to take in your new surroundings as you sneak into Hjallvik. You take a moment to take stock of everything you can see and everything you can hear. Everywhere you look, there are old, dilapidated wooden houses and gardens overrun with wild flowers. Broken, cobbled stone paths lead way deeper into the village, and the air stinks of rotting wood. Where it was quiet before, now you hear voices on the gentle wind, though you cannot see their source. And all of a sudden, the tension feels so much more than it did before. As quickly and quietly and carefully as you can, you draw your sword and hold it at the ready. Behind you, Istrid and Raskir creep into the village too, staying quiet as they carefully look around. They quickly disappear around corners you can't follow, and your attention turns to the matter at hand. You must get to the village square unseen. Gather round, I shall now speak." You aren't sure exactly where the voice is coming from, except the direction of the square, but it makes you freeze. "We've been busy of late, and there have been many sacrifices. But good work has been done, so shall it continue today." A roar of cheers rises up in response, which only serves to make you even more nervous. Much closer to you, you hear the sound of a door opening and realize someone is leaving the hut you stand beside. Before you can be seen, you dash to the wall of the building, where crates and boxes lie long abandoned and empty. You skirt behind them as quickly as you can as an outlaw rounds the corner, walking down the path towards you. With bated breath, you wait and wonder for a moment whether your hastily chosen hiding spot will be seen. But the outlaw passes, and you swallow your nerves down as your focus gathers. It's only a matter of time before the other person rounds the same corner, and you need to be on your way. Alright. So, this is his other ability. Obviously, we've already seen the Forceful Blow ability, and this is the other one, which is called Battle Sense, which is an ability that allows Ulrich to pick up on things others might miss, allowing him to spot weaknesses in combat opponents and find hidden advantages in many situations. I think we're going to use Battle Sense here and see what it actually gives us. With a deep breath, you ignore the ongoing speech and all the raucous cheers. Instead, you listen for any sound, any movement nearby that might tell you where the nearest outlaw is. It's the clink of their axe against their belt that you hear first, around the corner to your left. You have a window to sneak away unnoticed, if you wish to use it. Sneak away. You duck out from your hiding place and dash around the corner to your right, keeping your steps light and quiet. It's a small, uneven street of broken steps you find yourself on, downhill and leading towards the square. Not stopping to look at what is going on there, you quickly dive into the gap between two ruined homes. There, you're safe to take stock of the situation again, unseen by the outlaw you've successfully avoided. In the square, the peaceless seem to be gathered around this mysterious speaker. To your horror, you see one of the prisoners being dragged up next to the speaker by an outlaw with a dagger. "Your people abandoned you. They call you peaceless. They say you will never have honor before the gods. Well, I ask you, my friends, what will their honor be worth when all of their gods are dead?" There's another chorus of cheers from the crowd, and you see the prisoner sob and bow his head. You need to get closer, but between you and what looks more and more like a sacrifice is another outlaw. She stands by the wall of a house across the stepped path, watching the ceremony with folded arms. There simply isn't time to sneak around her. You will need to fight through her to continue on your way. I'm going to use Forceful Blow here. Bear in mind, I only have 18 resource to be able to accomplish these things, but I think it's necessary, so let's use Forceful Blow. In an instant, your mind is made up, and you're racing forwards with your sword held high. She doesn't see you coming, and you crash into her at full force, knocking her through the wall's rotting wooden logs. The entire wall splinters open and collapses around you both. While you're quick to cover your head, she is almost immediately knocked unconscious by the collapsing logs. As you pick yourself up with a groan, the ceiling supports creak and begin to fall as well.
What was that?
Too late do you realize that the preaching in the square has stopped.
To arms, my kin! We are not alone!
The square erupts into chaos as the peaceless grab for their weapons. Your chance to surprise them is spent, but at least their plans for the prisoners, whatever they are, have been stopped.
To honor, to glory!
You hear Askir's battle cry even over the din in the square, and you prepare yourself to enter the fray. There's a small army between you and the siblings. The fight has only just begun. You're very quickly surrounded. Even with all your training and experience, there is no way you could take them all on alone. You fight your way through to Istrid and Raskir, dealing only with the problems that lie between you. A block here, a parry there. The first outlaw to truly block your path is quickly felled with a savage swipe at his legs, sending him barreling to the floor. Straight away, you find yourself face to face with another, wielding an axe in each hand. Engage. You twist your sword into a defensive stance that you use to block the first of the warrior's heavy blows. Lighter on your feet, you can move much quicker, and as he recovers, you strike him in the chest. You have enough time to watch him sink to the floor before the next warrior is upon you. She uses a shield to strike you hard in the chest, winding you as you hit the floor hard. We took 3 HP damage. With that, she raises the shield high above her head and prepares to strike the killing blow. Roll away. You throw yourself out of the way of the strike before it falls, flinching as you hear the crack of steel on stone. As the warrior goes to strike again, you kick out at her legs, forcing her to the floor as well. As she groans, you pull yourself up and pounce towards her, plunging your sword, fatally, into her chest. That's when you catch your breath. A number of the peaceless already lie dead, but many more are swarming over Istrid and Raskir, and then they're on top of you as well, and you're forced to block and counter another swinging axe. Between strikes, it's difficult to gauge how much longer you'll need, if you can last at all. As you cast your eyes over the battlefield, you catch sight of yet another warrior coming towards you. Big and burly is this fighter. He's another to wield a vicious weapon in both hands. With a snarl and an angry cry, he starts to sprint towards you, already preparing to strike with a terrible blow. Alright, we're gonna go with a sidestep. As he brings the axe forward again with a howl, you duck and step out of his way, causing him to overreach. As he tumbles over, you strike him in the back of the legs with your sword. He cries out, but quickly gets back to his feet, readjusting his grip on the axe as he limps around to face you. As your eyes meet, you spin your sword back around to be ready once again. Flurry of blows. You launch into a flurry of quick and precise blows that aim to throw the warrior off guard. That works, and he's forced to watch the strikes awkwardly, or shall we say catch the strikes awkwardly with his axe, allowing you to press him back unrelentingly. His limp makes it easy for you to wrong-foot him, keeping your attacks short and sharp and on his weak side. As he tries to force you away with a punch of the axe handle, you duck underneath him and strike upwards. Your slice catches him in his stronger arm, and he cries out in pain. Pain quickly turns to anger, and he lashes out, trying to find a way back into the fight. Back and forth you go, trying to find an opening against this relentless foe, but you are starting to gain a palpable edge, as the injuries you've already inflicted start to catch up with him. He must sense this too, as he turns to other means to regain his advantage when you drive him back once again. He grabs at an outlaw who is busy fighting Raskir and hurls her towards you to catch you off guard. She tumbles towards you quickly, and you have to dart out of her way so that she doesn't crash into you. Your opponent has bought himself some time, but you still hold a significant advantage. With a desperate swing of his axe that you can easily block, he finally gives you an opening to make the final blow. Forceful blow. With his axe locked behind you by your sword, you grab him and headbutt him as hard as you can. Surprised, he drops the weapon, falling to the ground with a shake of his head. Meanwhile, you've already twisted your sword around to drive it through his chest in one decisive strike. With one last groan, he finally falls silent, and you are able to catch your breath. You're not entirely sure how you're still alive, but you know that you are. You have a brief moment to look around as the nearest outlaws look at you cautiously before re-engaging. Nearby, the Hetman's children are still fighting away. Istrid is struggling, trying to pick off one warrior with her sword while another grabs at her shield. You see her kick violently at the first, only to be lifted into the air as the warrior catches her foot. She manages to free herself by twisting around like an agitated cat, stabbing the second warrior in the collar. Meanwhile, Raskir howls and cries as he whirls his axe around in wild and unintelligible screams. All it seems to do is drive the crowd of outlaws around him back, but they quickly close in again. The three of you are being boxed in together, not far from where the speaker originally preached. Their numbers advantage is beginning to dwindle now, with many of the peaceless lying either dead or too injured to fight. But they still hold a numbers advantage, and you'll have to work together to stop yourselves from being surrounded. Cause a distraction. Riding the adrenaline, you call out towards the group that stands between you and the siblings. Those at the rear turn to face you immediately, preparing themselves for re-engagement. I'm going to say conserve my energy, or shall I use the forceful blow? This is the question. I don't know. Conserve my energy. Even if you can make it to Istrid and Raskir, you know the fight won't just end, so you conserve what energy you have. You fight smartly, blocking and parrying their blows until their defenses falter. You make quick work of them both, making room for you to get through to the siblings unscathed. Istrid and Raskir fight on, as you finally reunite with them, both tired and hurt and covered in blood. "Have you seen the prisoners, Outlander?" Istrid shouts at you while she fends off one of the remaining peaceless with her shield.
"No. There's nothing we can do now, Istrid, except keep fighting."
One of the warriors tries to wrestle Raskir's axe from his grasp, but with a growl he headbutts them away again.
"We're almost through."
You're about to scold him for daring to say something so stupid when, out of nowhere, you feel your heart sink. It only lasts the briefest of moments, but it's so intense and so crushing that you are left stunned by its arrival. All three of you freeze and find yourselves breathing hard as the fighting comes to a sudden stop. And as you swallow uncomfortably, your eyes are drawn to the speaker who stands on the other side of the square. He holds up a trinket that fits in his outstretched hand, which he has thrust towards you like a weapon. On it, you see lines etched into the metal like some archaic and mysterious symbol. It is one and the same as the symbol painted on every shield you can see, and some freshly inked tattoos as well. As your eyes lock with it, you are filled with a strange nervous tension that fills you with discomfort. Your first instinct is to run, to keep it out of view, to do anything that will shake that discomfort from you. The speaker must see it in your face, in one of your faces. He chuckles and starts to step behind the crowd of peaceless that now regroup behind you.
"You shall know not peace."
"You shall not know peace, even. Kill them!" With a cry, the peaceless come at you again, and you have to move quickly to stop them killing you on the spot.
"If we can stop the sorcerer, then we can put an end to this." "Very well. With me, then."
Raskir gives a furious cry and swings his axe in both hands, almost full circle around himself. The remaining peaceless dive backwards out of Raskir's way, staying between you and your new target. But if there is magic at work here, then you know you must strike before it clouds your mind once more. You have to get past these warriors somehow before the sorcerer can distract you again. Let's use battle sense. You leave the fighting itself to instinct, and instead push all of your focus into your senses. Dealing with the peaceless becomes much easier with all the advantages you find from where no one else looks. One who stands on a loose stone is thrown off balance when you aim a powerful kick at the step. You and Istrid work together to push another couple through a weak spot you notice in the nearby wall. As his defensive line fails, the sorcerer's face falls and becomes a mix of worry and anger. But now you're face to face, and able to put an end to this mastermind's schemes. We're gonna have to tread carefully because I don't have enough energy to use forceful blow. Your first instinct is to strike him down where he stands, but the power he displayed still plays on your mind. He does not look much of a threat, but you don't know what he's capable of, and you feel the need to tread carefully. So you raise your sword into a defensive stance and walk slowly towards him. But he sees this and grins, and thrusts the amulet towards you once again.
No peace!
Again, your eyes lock with the pendant, and you fall to your knees as your heart drops suddenly. You're overwhelmed, brought low by the most uncomfortable feeling that something is just not quite right. And so you barely pay attention to Raskia leaping past you to attack the sorcerer as regret takes you. Why do you feel regret? Guilt even? Then just like that, your mind is clear again, and you shake it as you try to remember what is going on. Outlander? Eastrid, we have to strike together. That power, it's too strong. She helps pull you back to your feet as the sorcerer pulls a sword from his belt to slash Raskia across the face. Together it is then. Now! Flurry of blows. You try to catch the sorcerer off guard by twisting your sword this way and that with blow after blow. He's soon straining to catch each of your strikes, pressed backwards as you outclass him in swordplay. Crucially, Eastrid makes use of the distraction, moving around you to trip him up with her shield. He's quick to scurry away, trying to stand so that he doesn't trip over the stairs, but he doesn't have enough time to stop you pressing your attack. Take the lead. You take the lead, pressing the sorcerer further and further up the hill until he has nowhere left to run. Your ears ring with the sound of clashing metal as your swords continue to strike against each other. And all the while, Eastrid darts around the fight to block off any means of escape your opponent hopes to find. Eventually, the sorcerer's defense finally fails, and he drops his sword with a clatter at your feet, breathing hard. As Raskia finally rejoins you, covered in blood but still furious, the sorcerer looks around at all of you, and he grins and laughs. It's not the first time you've experienced such a reaction, and you even find yourself rolling your eyes. He cackles as he stretches a hand out towards you. By the time you think about raising your sword to stop him, it's already too late. He's spoken an incantation of some kind, and is back to howling with laughter. And once again, you feel that strange, aching pain in your chest, and it pulls your focus away from the task at hand. What are you even doing here? Who are these strangers in this strange land? Did the siblings know that this might happen? Why did they not warn you? Can they be trusted? How are these simple outlaws able to push you so far for so long? What does that say about you? It just all makes you feel so contrite. Some part of your mind recognizes that you must break free of whatever spell this sorcerer has put you under. You shake your head as you try to find something, anything to cling to return to reality. Trust in your experience, I guess, or trust in... I don't really want to trust it. I think trust in my experience. You must have seen magic like this before. You know you must have. You have decades of experience to fall back on. You've been working as a mercenary for such a long time, and before that, as a soldier. In fact, you barely remember a time when you weren't fighting something or someone. It really has been such a long time. Might things have been better if you hadn't been so hasty? You're so lost in your train of thought that you barely register your knees hitting the ground. It's almost as though you're watching a play, as you see Raskia shake his head and look at Eastrid and then you. A part of your mind still fights with all its strength to be free of the spell, but your body simply won't comply. The sorcerer says something, but his words are muffled and drowned in some invisible, dreamlike lake. That is, until Raskia drives his axe through the man's head, and you're released from the spell. With a long inwards breath, you collapse forwards onto your hands, gasping for air. Once, and then twice, you shake your head, still breathing heavily as you push yourself back up. With that, quiet once again falls on the small abandoned village of Hjallvik. The strain of it all hits you immediately, and you take long deep breaths as your head spins. The battle is finally over. You're not afraid to admit that you're relieved. You set your sword down for a few moments, looking up at the sky as you take stock of events. It was a much harder fight than you were expecting. You're a little surprised by how well you've come through it, considering how hard it felt. As long as there are no complications, it shouldn't take you too long to recover. Are you all right?
I'm fine, Istrid. It's just another scratch.
It's not a scratch. Here, let me...
I said I'm fine.
You're brought back to reality by their bickering and look up to see them both looking angry and upset. Raskier quickly stretches his arms out towards you and laughs as he sees you looking at them.
Thank you for your help today, Outlander. This was much easier with your help.
He must see something in your expression, as his quickly changes back to a scowl.
Are you all right?
I'm going to say the sorcerer got to me. The sorcerer, he got in my head, that's all.
Yes, it was very powerful. Whatever power it was nothing good.
As Istrid paces around, she finds herself standing in front of one of the Peaceless's fallen shields. She uses a foot to kick it over, then takes a long, hard look at the symbol painted on its front. I don't know this writing. At first I thought it might be a symbol, but if it is, then it is not of any of our gods. Something fouler was at work here. He never mentioned any names. All of you turn towards the voice, once again on guard at the first sign of a new threat. You immediately recognize one of the prisoners creeping through the door of a nearby ruined house. At the sight of the siblings' weapons, she immediately puts up her hands, though they're bound together by thick ropes. The second prisoner appears behind her a moment later, looking around nervously. The first indicates the sorcerer's body with a nervous, pointing finger. Before you arrived, he never said who or what they follow, and neither did any of the soldiers who captured us. He just kept complaining about the way the Peaceless are treated. Never mind that. Istrid hurries over to her to untie the bonds around her hands. Are you both all right? Fine, I think. A few scrapes and bruises, but we'll recover, I think. When she's free, she nervously looks around at you, while Raskier unties the other prisoner. I'm sorry to you both for this whole ordeal. They both nod, but both still seem shaken and afraid as they rub their wrists. I'm going to say, where are you from? Varnheim. We were traveling south to trade when they attacked us on the road. It wasn't even at night, middle of the day, quite in the open. They just ran at us from all sides. We didn't even have the chance to defend ourselves. They knocked us out, and when we came about, we were in that forest.
When was this?
2 days past, I think. I understand. That's enough for now. You can return to Isleifsfell with us. From there, we'll make sure you return home safely. Slowly, they both nod their understanding. Istrid shepherds them towards the village's gateway and tells them to warn her if there is any sign of trouble. When she returns, she glances again at the shield she kicked over and then takes another long glance about the place. We can't just leave it like this. Will they come back? Some of the Peaceless fled. Will they come back to Hjallvik once we're gone? I'm not sure. If they think it is safe, maybe they'll be tempted to return.
They should be hunted down. Especially if they're in league with sorcerers like this. They're too dangerous to be left alive.
We're in no state to do anything about those who have fled now. We'll tell Father and take it from there. And what of the Peaceless here who are injured, not dead? What should we do with them? Istrid takes a long look around at those Peaceless who lie unconscious or groaning as they nurse serious wounds. Raskier stalks one that is trying to crawl away down the stairs, and then puts his boot on the man's back to stop him.
Their lives were forfeit even before they aligned themselves to whatever darkness this is. We must execute them.
I mean, they could be useful for information. I'm not sure what that is going to lead to. I'm going to say they could be useful. They might be useful to keep alive. Raskia scowls at you as you pick your sword up and wipe it down on your trouser leg.
What?
The Outlander's right, Raskia. Raskia rounds on his sister angrily, but she pushes him away and signals for him to calm down. All of this is strange. The peaceless gathering on the mainland like this, the symbol, the sorcerer, the ceremony, it's all wrong, but we should try to understand it in case we need to know for the future.
What do we possibly need to know that we don't already? They were exiled and have returned, and they have accepted the path of the sorcerer who speaks against the gods. Father would banish us both if we dragged them through his hall, when we had the chance to end them here.
And what if this is leading to something else? Would you simply have us fight it blindly? A prisoner can tell us if there are other places like this, other people doing things like this. Yeah, I mean, that's the point. That's the reason why I said maybe they could be useful. Because, in my opinion, information is very, very important, right? I think so. I mean, here's the thing, okay? Usually, I would be agreeing with Raskia right now. I would think to myself, yeah, eliminating your enemies, that is obviously a way of life. And at this point in history, and making sure that, they don't come and attack you again. But that is quite a short-sighted way of doing things, because otherwise you're not going to think in the future. You're not thinking about what is going to happen potentially, and that's exactly the reason why I'm going to agree with Istrid here. Istrid is right, Raskia. We should take at least one prisoner, just in case. If all of this is so strange, you must take some precautions. It is the right thing to do. Istrid smiles a very small, very relieved smile before she turns back to her brother to see if he understands. Father will understand, Raskia. If we don't try, we may not see something even more dangerous coming. Raskia fumes at you both for a long moment before he snarls and waves a despairing hand in your direction.
On your heads be it. I will have no part in this.
Istrid collects the rope she untied from the Peaceless's own prisoners. She uses it to bind one of the surviving warrior's hands and gags him. Then she looks back to the two of you with further instructions. Let's get this done. We will be arriving back at Isleifsfell after nightfall. Your work brings you easily into the late afternoon. Raskia takes no issue in ending the suffering of those Peaceless who survive the battle. Those who try to flee are met with an even angrier end. And then you are faced with a pile of corpses that Istrid bitterly sets aflame. It's been some time since you last smelt that very singular smell, and your lip curls as you inhale the smoke. When the fire is blazing, anything bearing the same strange lines as the sorcerer bore is tossed into the flames as well. It makes the smoke even more acrid, and the three of you take no pleasure in staying much longer. You find some remnants of supplies strewn about the place as well, but they're dwindling, and very little remains to be salvaged. Finally, you find the pendant that the sorcerer thrust at you during the fight. Once again, as you gaze at it, you feel a great discomfort that is difficult to shake, and yet somehow you cannot simply look away. The lines and shape have a strange magnetism about them. It's only interrupted when you sense Istrid and Raskia walking over to you from the bonfire. It seems... was he converting them? I mean, obviously he was wanting to sacrifice. It was human sacrifice, right? I can assume, yes? Human sacrifice. I'm going to say it seems mystical. It almost seems mystical now that I have had proper time to look at it. Over your shoulder, both the siblings observe it for a moment too, but you quickly hear Istrid sigh. I've never seen such a thing, and I do not like it. Are you sure that we should not take this back to Isleifsfell for Bran to examine properly?
Absolutely not.
Before you can stop him, Raskia rips the medallion from your hand and tosses it into the raging fire. A flame licks out to swallow up the medallion, and then it is gone out of sight, never to trouble anyone again. Istrid continues to look at the fire as Raskir starts to make his way down the steps towards the gate. She's quiet and contemplative, slowly turning to look at you and speaking under her breath. We should be glad we stopped whatever it was they were trying to achieve today, Outlander. Come on, the Hetman will be expecting us. It must already be early the next morning when you finally trudge into the Hetman's hall. Alright, so I think that's probably a good time to end this episode off here. And if you would like to check out Wolves on the Westwind, which in my opinion, I mean really, I'm getting carried away just literally playing this right now. And I want to see what happens next. I want to make all these choices and I want to see how I do and whether I can get a good ending. And you should probably check it out yourself too through the link in the description. And check it out on iOS and Steam. It's coming out on both. And it's great. It's absolutely fantastic. If you like Vikings and mythology and sort of medieval fantasy style, then you're really going to enjoy this. Absolutely. Anyway, I thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.